Patty Simpson with Simpson Math. In this video, we're going to look at how we can use an observational study or an experiment to answer questions. In statistics, we ask some question and then we go out and we collect data to help us to answer that question. And there are two different ways that we can do that. We can simply observe data that already exists by using an observational study, or we can take and do a little manipulation and give a group a treatment in order to collect our data. So let me give you some examples. In our first question, we have, does the color of a basketball influence the number of times a shooter sinks a basket? So maybe me, as the researcher, thinks that if I give all my team members a blue basketball, they'll sink more baskets than a team that has all orange basketballs. So I want to do some experiment, or I want to do some study to help me to see if that's true. One way to do it is to simply observe. I could just place blue and orange basketballs out on the basketball court and ask my players to go choose a color basketball. Then write down the color they've chosen. Then let them go and from a specific spot, shoot basket after basket after basket and count the number of baskets that they've made. That would be an observational study. I'm simply observing. They chose their own ball. I didn't provide the ball for them. They chose their own ball and then they just shot baskets, and I wrote down what color ball they chose and how many baskets they made. If I wanted to be a little more precise though, so for instance, in this observational study, there could be outside or lurking variables that are there that I've not realized. So maybe everyone who chooses a blue basketball happens to have some vision impairment and it makes it more difficult for them to shoot a basket. Or maybe people who choose the blue basketball are older and it makes it harder for them to choose a basket. All the people who choose a blue basketball on their own may have some sort of similar characteristic, and that's the reason that they chose the blue basketball over the orange basketball. And that similar characteristic may be what's really making them shoot the basket better or worse. So to help eliminate those outside variables, those lurking or confounding variables, we like to perform experiments. Experiments are just a little more rigorous. They help to eliminate those lurking variables. So here's an example of how I can answer that same question using an experiment. Here, instead of allowing them to choose their own basketball, I'm going to divide my subject in, or actually I'm going to give the same subject two balls. First, I'm going to give him an orange ball, and I'm going to have him stand in a certain spot and shoot baskets and count how many he does correctly, or she. Then give him the blue basketball and do the same thing, so that I know it's the exact same shooter that's shooting. There's not any differences there. They don't have any separate characteristics. So I could do that for multiple players to collect data, and that way I'm keeping everything the same shooter, the same type of shot, the same environment that they're shooting in, and I can help to eliminate those outside variables. So here, this is an example of an experiment where I've given them the treatment of a blue ball, and that control group then would be the orange ball, as opposed to the observational study where I just let them go choose and I just record. Here's another question we could answer two different ways. Does smoking during pregnancy affect birth weight? If I'm doing an observational study, I'm simply observing. So I might ask several pregnant women, did you smoke during pregnancy? And I'll just record what their answer is. That's data that already exists. And then when the baby is born, I weigh the newborn baby. And again, I can write down that data that already exists. So in this, I'm just simply observing what's happening. But maybe it turns out that maybe the birth weight of the babies is smaller, and in which case, maybe it's not the smoking that's causing it. Maybe it is people who choose to smoke have some characteristic that is the same. Maybe all the women who choose to smoke have less education, and so they don't know to do prenatal care. And that prenatal care or the lack of prenatal care is really what's causing the low birth weight and not the smoking. Or maybe people who smoke have some other characteristic. They're hard workers, and that hard work is what's causing the low birth weight and not the smoking. So there are outside variables that could be affecting my study. So to help eliminate those outside variables, it would be best to perform an experiment. An experiment is just more rigorous. It eliminates those outside variables. So instead of just asking the pregnant women, do you smoke, and weighing the baby, for an experiment, what you'd have to do is take the women and divide them into two groups. You would want your women to be exactly the same in every way that you can think of: education level, financial level, the number of people in their home, what they're eating during pregnancy, how much they're working during pregnancy, how much they're sleeping. You make your two groups as much as possible the same. Their race, their age, all that exactly the same. And then one group you would say, you're not going to smoke during pregnancy. And the other group you would say, you're going to smoke during pregnancy. You would give them that treatment of smoking. Then, when the baby was born, you would weigh the baby to see how much they weighed. And by eliminating all those outside variables, you would then know, oh, I'm pretty sure that the smoking is what is influencing the baby's weight. But you can maybe see a problem with that. Ethically, if I think that you smoking during pregnancy is going to make your birth weight of the baby be less, that wouldn't be ethical. So in this case, I can't actually perform an experiment on this. So instead, I have to do an observational study. So sometimes we can do observational studies. Sometimes we can do experiments. We would prefer to be able to do experiments, but experiments take time, they take money, and they take the ability to be able to do it. So sometimes it's just not possible. There's a little bit about observational studies versus experiments. Math Made Simple at Simpson Math. Thanks for watching.